It's recording.
Thank you. We are gonna call to order the Whatcom County Ferry Advisory Committee meeting on March 14th at 6 p.m. in the Garden Room Building in Bellingham. So first, I would like to call the roll. Janice Cottrell, here. Richard Fry.
Present.
Pam Gould, here. Diane Harper.
Here.
Todd Legacy.
Here.
Carol Lamp.
Here.
Tom Philpott.
Here.
Catherine Shornick was not able to be here tonight, and we have one unfilled seat. So thank you all for coming. We are going to stand and do a flag salute and a moment of silence to bring our best selves to this meeting. And this is the only flag. I pledge allegiance to the United States of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Great. Okay. Well, I'd like to welcome all the committee members coming from Lummi and from town. I'd also like to welcome the county staff, Kim Boone, our assistant from Public Works, Roland Middleton, the community outreach coordinator from Public Works, John Scanlon, one of our county council representatives and the chair of the Public Works Committee for the county council, and Gary Poole, our senior master of the Ferry. And I'd like to welcome the community here in the audience, as well as the community on Zoom. So thank you for attending. So the first order of business here, everyone got the agenda in their packet. And are there any changes that anyone would like to make to the agenda? If not, the agenda will stand as written. This next order of business, everyone received a copy of the minutes from the meeting on February 22nd, 2024 to review in their minutes. Are there any changes or adjustments to the minutes that anyone would like to make? Hearing no adjustment changes, the minutes will stand as written. So the next order of business, Gary Poole is going to bring stuff today on everything happening with the ferry and dry dock, etc.
So I have to apologize about the dry dock schedule. We were told one thing by a yard, and it turned out that their information they gave us was wrong. So our dry dock dates right now are unsettled.
Oh.
In order to get bids, so let's get a little quick history of the dry docks. The number of dry docks in Puget Sound that we have available to us now has gone down. We used to have Fairhaven. They're no longer a shipyard with a dry dock. Foss Shipyard had three dry docks that would bid on us. They're no longer in service. We're down to basically 4 companies that can bid on water work. Lake Union Shipyard, Nicholas Brothers, Bigger, Dakota Creek. Dakota Creek is 1 to 2 years out. Bigger is 1 to 2 years out. That gives us two companies to bid. And so in order to make it so that we could have a competitive bidding process, we stretched the dry dock length to 4 weeks. Unfortunately, we had to do that in order to get people to bid on the job. We had one person who would bid, but we wanted to get 2 so we get some sharper pencils. We're trying to, cut costs best we can. So that being said, I'm sorry for the length, unfortunately. And then the amount of work we had a couple of surprises on the boat this year too. That came up that made it 4 weeks. Everything else though is going accordingly. We're going to open up our bids on March 26th. On March 26th, we should know the dates of when we'll be out of service and when we'll be returned in service. In our specs we wrote on, I'm gonna duck hard hat on, flak jacket. We said that we are The work is to go no longer than June 18th by the yards. That'll put us back in service on Saturday, the 20th. That gives us 2 days to get the boat ready and sea trial and into service. So that's what that is the latest they'll work on. It could be sooner. We're gonna find out on March 26th of this month. And so cross your fingers, guys, that we can get it in sooner. That's what we're hoping for. But we don't find out until March 26th.
So it could potentially be then from the middle of May to the middle of June,
Yes.
but we won't know until the 25th.
Yeah, and as soon as we find out, Public Works will broadcast it and let everybody know what's going on.
Got it.
Yeah, so, yeah. Let you know a little bit. So we have a new person in M&O. And he's taking the job of the person who used to do this. He's new at this. I got this. We all got kind of caught up at the last second,
A new person in what?
at the shop. The assistant director out there.
Oh,
And it's his job that runs the ferry stuff. That being said, him and I are gonna work after this dry dock so that we can have the process going much sooner. So probably we're hoping by the 1st of October, we're able to go out for bids. So we'll be much more settled.
yeah, I was wondering if some companies are 1 to 2 years out. Can you bid for the time ahead, like
That's what we're looking.
1 year or 2 years out so
Yeah.
that this doesn't happen?
And that's what we're looking into, Pam, is we're looking into ways to mitigate this problem. And this is the first year we've really had this problem. Where it's been like this, so, we've been scrambling, myself, Chantel, Brett, who runs out the shop, we've been working nonstop on this problem. So,
Okay, so the original dates you got were not
yeah,
correct.
we're not correct. We were like, yeah, and then all of a sudden we went, uh-oh. So,
Okay.
and that's all I have for the fair.
Enough, no other new changes. Okay. Okay, so, next, yeah, oh, yeah.
So, given that I'm imagining there's a big demand for shipyards, do you have any idea why these other yards have gone out of business?
I do not, Fairhaven Shipyard's been out of business, Richard, for about 10 years.
Yeah.
And they've sold their dry dock to another outfit. In fact, one of the outfits that bid on this as their dry dock now, so we could end up on that pier. The Foss Shipyard, they were looking at the numbers. The people who own Foss Shipyard are not maritime people. They're just a bunch of lawyers, accountants. It's for them money investment, and they weren't getting the returns they wanted on their shipyard. They had a lot of work to do on their yard itself down in the waterway there, and so they said it's better for them just to close and move on. Yeah,
Sounds like it's time to get into the business.
I was gonna say, aren't you time on your hands?
I know.
Thank you.
Any other comments for Gary? From the committee? Okay, thank you.
And could you put out a brown betty or something? Because I know a lot of folks plan their vacations
Yeah,
around it.
Mandy is going to send out a press release. I wanted to tell you guys first. Tomorrow she's sending out a thing from the county, so I can send it to her and say, hey, put Brown Betty too.
Yeah, get the word out because
Mhm.
people do already have.
I know.
You've already heard.
Yeah, I live with a woman who has plans and they said, what?
What do you mean? Okay, all right, next, on our business meeting, we have, Whatcom County Public Works Accountant Randy Rydell with us. Thank you, Randy. And he is gonna just say, share a few things with us about the finances in the last few years.
And may I have the presentation,
Yes,
so that I can share a screen?
there you go.
Thank you. Let's see here. So, Hello, Randy Rydell here. I'm not sure, how well people will be able to see the screen in here. Hopefully it's big enough, but, it's also available then to those of you who are at home. I am here to discuss, some of the numbers for the, there we go. That came from the, recent look at the year end of 2023 concluding. We don't have all the numbers in yet. There are still changes that are being made. But ultimately, we have a lot of the numbers as far as expenses and revenues and those pieces. So a few highlights from the year are, first off, this is from 2023, that we have collected about $200,000 less in fares than we had budgeted. The ferry deficit reimbursement that comes in every year came in about 116,000, somewhere around there, less than budgeted. The motor vehicle fuel tax came in less than budgeted, and on the other side, investment interest was up. Ultimately, from a ferry operation standpoint, the year ended with $474,000 less revenue than we expected. That's not great if you're a company trying to make ends meet, because we had expenses that were similar to last year, if not a little bit higher than last year. We'll go over those in a minute, but so here's the revenue collection. And I'll take a moment to note the ridership piece. Ridership was down from 2022. Single rides decreased, single ride pedestrians decreased by 10%. Single ride vehicles decreased by almost 9%. Multi-rides were a little bit less, and multi-ride vehicles experienced the least amount of decline. Ultimately, this decline is what, this decline and the mix of tickets that are bought. When I say mix of tickets, I mean, if everyone bought full fare tickets, we would have plenty of revenue. If everyone bought multi-ride tickets, we wouldn't. And so it's a complex mix of ridership and, the type of tickets that people purchase. Yes,
Can
Cam?
I ask one question? Do we have numbers that say, like how many what's the percentage of single ride pedestrians or single ride vehicles, or, you know, like what's the percentage, you know, in terms of ridership? 20% of the trips are.
Yeah, I do. I have those numbers in front of me. I can't put them up on the screen, but pedestrian cash fares, single ride pedestrian fares, 12% of ridership.
Okay. About.
Single ride vehicles is 18% of ridership.
Got it.
And so total single rides for those, not counting trucks, but for
Right.
those make up, what, 30%?
Trucks? No.
30, not counting trucks,
Oh, not counting.
make up 30%.
Oh, made 30% single ride cars, like regular cars,
And single ride pedestrians.
Single ride cars and pedestrians together.
make about 30%. Okay,
Yes.
got it.
So 30, if you look at the fare structure, as I know we want to do, 30% of ridership pays the full fare price.
Right. And what's the percentage that pays, and what about trucks? What percentage of ridership are trucks?
Do they even register on here? Let's see here. They are not enough to register on those percent of ridership that I have.
Basically, the multi-ride vehicles that are passenger vehicles and the pedestrians make up 91%.
Well, no,
So the
the other, no,
trucks-
just a minute. That group that he just talked about makes up 30%.
Trucks make up 1%.
Trucks make up 1%.
Yes.
And so vehicles and passengers with passes make up the other 69%. Is that correct?
Yes,
Okay. 69% and trucks are 1%.
yes.
Okay, that's helpful to know for us when we're looking at how the fares are gonna be computed. And I've never heard those numbers before, so thank you.
Okay.
Okay,
So back to ridership. Let's actually, sorry about this. I'm gonna step away from the graph that that council saw the other day, and I'd like to step into a different graph that I prepared just for you guys. And it is. Here to look at expenses. The operating expenses, boy, that came out really small. I'm sorry, folks. The operating expenses for 2022, 2023, and 2020 were estimated. You can see that. And what I did for this, there was some requests to see what it would look like without the dolphin repairs, because those have been a hot topic. So I took dolphin repairs out for this graph. Without dolphin repairs, $3.5 million worth of expenses in 2022. Let's see here. Get that number to pop up. It's about 3.75, yeah, $3.729 million worth of expenses in 2023. And it's estimated to be $4 million in 2024. So they're going up $500,000 every 2 years.
about,
About.
okay,
And that, I think the jump between 2022 and 2023 was about 7%.
got it.
So those are going up. Yes, Diane.
I think that is what primarily our vessel rental, the increased dry dock costs.
The vessel rental, I'm not sure what year it went up. I don't know if that was 20, it might have been earlier than that.
22 to 23, I think it went up 400,000.
No.
No, 23.
Yeah, it's been 960 for 3 years, so no, it doesn't include that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Just a very simple question. Randy, are these graphs gonna be made part of the record of this meeting, the minutes of this meeting, so that we'll be able to download them?
They're being recorded right now. They are live meeting notes.
No, I know, but what I want to know is whether they're going to be attached to the minutes of this meeting and part of the public record of this meeting.
Refer to them.
now, if Brandy doesn't mind sending us a copy, we can attach them to the minutes.
Yeah, I can send you these graphs, and the other notes that I'm going off of are actually already with council.
Oh, got you.
They were distributed to council.
Yeah, it's already, exactly. If you wouldn't mind sending that stuff to me, then we'll include it in the minutes. Thank you, Peter.
So
Okay,
if we look at fare revenue, we can see that fare revenue from 2022, and we know that ridership went down, it was $1.5 million. 2023 went down to 389. And this 2024 estimate that I have here has it going back up.
why do you think?
This is because I have modeled in the increase that St. Paul has requested.
Oh, it would go up if
If.
there's a fare increase. Got
That
it,
increase models in $200,000 of fare income.
got it.
That's a
Without that,
15%.
that is 15%, a 15% increase from the year before.
Got you. For the whole year of 2024, or just from June on, or whenever it might be enacted?
If it is enacted in May and multi-ride cards have 1 month worth of validity before you can't use those old rates anymore, that would net, without a significant drop in ridership, $200,000. 210,000 is the target we were aiming for when we said 15%.
And that's at 15%, correct?
That is with, the,
The proposal he gave us or 15%
it's
across
a
the board?
15% overall,
Okay, got it. Perfect.
revenue increase.
Got it.
Yeah, what number of ridership are you using for the 2024 projection? Are you using the 2023 numbers, which were down, or the 2022 numbers, which were higher?
I'm using the 2023 numbers because
Okay.
those were the most current. And I will say that I did put a small drop in them. I put a drop of 5% in single rides and a drop of 3% in multi-rides.
Thank you.
And that's on top of the drop we've already had.
Yes. That's just knowing that people change habits when fares change. And there's no real good way to guess.
Solid numbers, yeah.
So here's, this fare revenue, as I said, is projected with a $200,000 increase. That would be 15%, and that is applying the executive's proposed rate. So
But the proposal that we got from the executive was a 25% net increase for the year.
So, that would
But
be
that is
for
not
a
what
full
you
year, and this is not a full year implementation.
Oh, so your calculations are using what he gave us, but only for half a year.
Yes,
Got you. Got you.
Right, 25% proposal.
So you're following that, it would be double that. When it's in place the entire year, if that's what
yes,
happens.
something like that.
Got you, okay.
But we were told that 15%,
Okay.
79.4.
Any other comments from the committee? Any other questions for Randy? Are you done, Randy? I'm sorry. You keep
yeah.
going.
I will, jump in. I know one of the other pieces is, let me back up and go back to the other slide. Share, and to say that overall, this is a look at 1 year of, this is a look at the 2024 forecast. And this blue line in here is the cumulative fare box. Without any assistance, it dips below zero around between April and May.
Randy, does this
When we talk about ARPA,
Excuse me.
the ARPA addition, which has been proposed in council, is the addition of ARPA money. It actually keeps fare box up above zero until we get to the end of the year.
And do you know if Liz is intending to request ARPA money?
It's all in the council's, it's
They would have.
part of the council.
Would she make a formal request though, and then they would decide, or has she done that already?
I'm not aware, because I know that it came right out of the executive talking with council, and that's where the ARPA funds are authorized through. It's not, so I can't answer,
It's my understanding.
yeah.
It's my understanding Public Works has requested that from the executive. And that's going on a whole bunch of other stuff that will be wrapped up and.
Got it. Okay.
And I have one question, just to clarify.
Quick, yes.
But, you started off, Randy, by saying that you were deducting the dolphins from those two blue graphs, the bar graphs that you showed. Are the dolphins included in the cost side of this graph that you have there on?
The dolphins are not an expense of 2024,
But they're
they're included in
starting-
where we started from, yes.
So are the dolphins are included in the $600,000, oh, it's $570,150 starting point?
Yes,
So you have them in. Now,
Okay, you have to sign up to speak during the open session. This is,
I thought we changed in community input to allow discussion and.
we did, but we have a lot
Go
of,
back to the old way?
no, we have a lot of business, Peter. And he just did answer your question, that in the first one, the dolphins were out, and in the second graph, the dolphins are in. Is that not the question you're asking?
I have a follow-up question. That was a predicate to, I just, if you want to cut off discussion about this, Pam, that's okay.
I
Tell
don't,
me that you want to cut off discussion.
I don't want to cut off discussion entirely, but we have a lot of business
Ask a
tonight.
question.
So if you have another
I
quick
do.
question, please.
Okay, yes. Randy, you're aware that, LACTA passed a motion unanimously at this last meeting on February 22nd, asking you, or asking Public Works to provide a financial analysis with the Dolphins out of that, and where you guys have put together the 4 charts that you presented to the council with the Dolphins in. And LACFAC asked for a financial analysis with the Dolphins out. Are you going to produce these charts with the Dolphins out so we can see the steep, if there's any change in the steepness of this curve downward? Or we can see how that contrasts?
I can answer that right now. There is no change in the steepness of the curve downward because the dolphin expense is not in 2024. What we're looking at here is 2024 and 2025. Since the dolphin is not an expense of that downward trend doesn't have anything to do with dolphins.
But it starts low.
Where it starts from does, but the downward trend, the fact that
That's a
this
slope.
whole graph slopes downward does not have any
Okay.
bearing on the dolphin question.
Thank you. Okay,
So ultimately, what we were looking at just a minute ago was the year 2024's estimates. Here is a graph of the bigger picture, and that is 2025, 2026, where it continues to head down. This is forecasted with revenue income, some increase from ridership with the ARPA money. And I will say that the ridership revenue, I didn't get a chance to update this because I've been a little bit swamped with some of these requests, but this ridership number in here will probably go up about $100,000 more if the Sat Pulse current request goes through. It's still down.
the ridership is the gray line or the,
No, the gray line is the
Fund
fund
balance.
balance. And the blue line and the yellow line is what is the road fund's contribution into the fund. And the blue line is the fare contribution into the fund. So the road fund plus the fare box make up the fund balance. Now, we won't see and we won't let the fund balance get to zero because that means we can't operate.
right,
Ultimately, we will need to come up with something to keep that going. We've got a number of options. Those options were presented at council. And I don't think we need to go into it right here, but there are options available. And, ultimately, we will continue working together to keep this, to keep the fund balance available for operation.
so is it fair to say a fair adjustment alone will not turn this tide entirely?
It doesn't look like a fair adjustment alone, but
Right.
that's why we're applying ARPA.
Right,
We're applying the fair adjustment. It is good to think right now, this model, if we saw some lower than expected revenue numbers last year that I've mentioned in the beginning.
yeah, yeah, right.
Those have been modeled in here at the lower than expected. They could be $100,000 more. We don't know yet what those numbers for 2024 will look like,
Got it.
but hopefully it will only get better. As we get further down the road with a fare increase and we start to see what effect that has on things, would affect any of these other questions that are outstanding have on the fare box, cumulative fare box, we will be able to then make further adjustments as needed.
Any other questions?
So where's the next mechanism by which you hypothesize that these numbers are sloping down like this? Is it, what's happening here?
Why do I think they're sloping down?
Yeah, obviously you're making an assumption that they're gonna slope down in the future, so what are you basing that assumption on?
Historic expenses.
From when to when?
Well, we have 2022,
So does that mean
2020.
that, so in other words, expenses are going up,
Yes.
okay? And what controls the rate that expenses go up?
Many things, including inflation, shipyard prices, fuel prices, the wage
Could it
negotiation.
also include, could also a factor be including expenses which really shouldn't belong in the charge to fares? Is that a factor at all? Could that be a factor?
I think that would depend on how you look at it. I mean, right now, I've
I'll go with that.
tried my hardest not to include these in here. As I said before, there's no dolphins and none of these other expenses have been.
As you know, I like to know if someone is projecting some change into the future. The assumptions that are being made are crucial to determining what it is that you're trying to say with the chart. So that's all I'm trying to clarify. So that's enough.
Thank you. Are you completed?
I'm done. I think you have plenty more to do.
We do. We have really a lot to do tonight. Thank you very much, Randy. We appreciate it. Okay, the next order of business is adoption of the Whatcom County Code, Chapter 10.34 ferry rates proposal that we've been working on for the last 7 weeks.
Yeah.
So you all got in your packet a copy of the proposal that was completed. And Diane handed out at the beginning of the meeting the explanation of all the changes. It was this long piece here. This was actually something that Representative Strumler really wanted to see at the last county council meeting. When they were making a change of the code, he wanted to see what had been there and what change they were making and what it looked like. Rather than just hearing, this is the change that's happening, he wanted to see it more clearly, and this document does do that. So we're going to include that in the packet along with the changes. Are there any, Diane has submitted one amendment that she would like to propose to the fair recommendations that we reviewed at our last meeting. I'm not-
Available with community members? I don't think there are enough to go around.
Sorry,
This
I
one.
brought extras of some things, but I didn't have this. Because I thought I was going to be able to put it up on the screen, and it turns out that my old computer has decided it does not want to connect to the internet. So I have no way of zooming. I have no way of putting my
Even sharing it, and I could put it up if I had it.
images. So I guess it's time for a new computer, but my apologies. I thought I was prepared. I had a great little slideshow. You all did get in your packet ahead of time, those of you who have signed up to get the Whatcom County Ferry Advisory Committee emails, and we found out that some of you haven't. It's really important because that way you get all these materials ahead of the meetings. I sent out a copy of the code as we talked about it at our last meeting. It has a cover page on it, and then it has the code itself. And I have one amendment I would like to make to what we considered last week, and there should have been enough copies just for the committee.
Excuse me, Diane, what is the title of it so I can scroll to it?
The title of it is, oh boy, what?
Whatcom County Ferry Advisory Committee, I'm trying to
Attached.
keep
Whatcom
going, it's
County-
past that. There, right there.
Okay, thank you. And what I, point out here is that in our, code amendments, we have included some provisions in that final chapter, that were not there before about how you can keep either, excess fares or deficits from accumulating forever, basically. We had a period of 12 years where surpluses kept building. And so as a part of that, there in chapter 10.34, 0.030, if you'll scroll on down to page page 7 of that document, there is a code provision that says ferry rates or services shall be changed at any time the cumulative fare box reserve has a positive balance greater than the total amount of the prior annual total of ferry user fees. In other words, we actually hit this a few years ago, where we had more in the cumulative fare box reserve than a whole year of ferry revenue. And it goes on to say, or the cumulative fare box reserve has a negative balance greater than could be funded by 1/3 of the total amount of the prior year ferry user fees. That was our COVID experience. We had an incredible event and it actually used less than 1/3 of our annual fare revenue. The amendment I am proposing is because we had the experience of the Monson memo, where all of a sudden our cumulative fare box revenue went up by $2 million. And as Randy just alluded to, there are questions out there that might once again make a major change in the cumulative fare box. And for that reason, this is my proposed amendment. Ferry rates or services shall be changed at any time the cumulative fare box reserve has a positive balance greater than the total amount of the prior annual total of ferry user fees. This is the amendment. Unless there have been 3 sequential years of ferry user fees not reaching the fare box recovery goal. In other words, it would be, I think, malpractice if we get things like the dolphins resolved or some of these other issues resolved. And all of a sudden, even though the fare revenue is quite a bit less than 55%, this code forced a fare reduction. It would just be totally counterproductive. And so I'm suggesting that we put this exception in here, is if for 3 years the fare revenue has not met the 55% goal, then we should not require a fare reduction. So I don't know if I've said it quickly, shortly enough to be a motion, but I move that in chapter.
Do you have a copy of the amendment to give the secretary?
Oh, I see. Well, in this document. Yes. So I move that in chapter 10.34.030, section E, we add these words, unless there have been 3 sequential years of ferry user fees not reaching the fare box recovery goal.
And that is currently highlighted in the copy that you have.
It's the bright yellow text.
Right.
I'm just hoping for another Monson event where all of a sudden we have a huge amount of money in our cumulative fare box.
Yeah. So do we have a motion to make that 1-line amendment?
I moved, I think. I made the
Oh,
motion.
do we have a second?
Well, second.
Tom, second. Is there discussion about the amendment? Any discussion? If not, I'll call the question. Please signify by saying aye if you want to include the amendment.
Aye.
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 Please signify by saying, raising your hand if you do not want that amendment. One Todd Legacy, one against, and 6. Are there 7 of us tonight?
I'm abstaining,
Pardon me?
I'm abstaining.
And 1 abstention. Good one.
I don't get it.
4 in favor.
I don't follow.
Okay. Are there any other amendments to be brought forward for this Whatcom County Code 10.34 Ferry recommendation to the county council? No more amendments? Cool. No, I see no discussion. So we are going to vote on the document that you received in your packet. Everyone's had a lot of chance to read it. It's been out there for about at least a month in various forms to appreciate. And if we pass it tonight, it will go directly to Dana, to the council, to be included in their packet to be looked at. So all in favor of recommending our attached document, Chapter 10.34 amend to the county council as our recommendation for the code adoption, please raise your hand. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All opposed for the recommendations for the code adoption? Abstention for the code adoption. 1 abstention. Thank you very much. We will transmit this to Dana as requested for the county council to be included in their packet for their meetings on Tuesday. Ralph?
I have a very quick question.
Yes.
The current code, this recommendation and what the county has recommended, given the financial situation that Randy has outlined, do any of the 3 trigger a rate increase today?
Yes, right now, the balance, the 2021, we were less than 55%. 2022, we were less than 55%. In 2023, we were less than 55%. And it sure looks like we're going to be less than 55% in 2024.
Okay, current code?
And the current code, we have to be in deficit
Right.
in order to have a fair increase. This code loosened that on the premise that if you have either 3 sequential years of too much revenue or 3 sequential years of too little revenue, you should take a look and not let it just go on for a decade, which is what happened last time. It just, you know, nobody wanted to mess with it because we just kept.
The county code, county recommendations?
The county recommendation didn't change it. It said deficit.
So neither the county recommendations nor the current code will trigger a rate increase.
As I understand it, however, I also understand that at least some parts of the county administration don't agree with that view.
Thank you.
Okay, we want to move on to fares. One last question, Peter.
The 3 years you mentioned, that Ralph asked, is under the current code, which requires a deficit. And the current code also prohibits regular and routine, non-regular and non-routine costs in the fare box. Are you, does the calculation you make include the profits in the fare box in order to achieve that fare hike you're talking about?
We would not be deficit in 2021 if we take the Dolphins out. We would still be deficit in 22 and, no wait, the Dolphins were in 22 and 23. So we would I think
Sorry.
when I ran the calculation, I believe that we were still deficit, but it wasn't by very much. But I don't actually have that in front of me, Peter, I'm sorry. I'll look it up.
You're not actually proposing a rate increase, but by having people who waiting for this, and they vote for a rate increase?
I'm not proposing a rate increase, no.
No one's proposing a rate increase. The executive is proposing a rate increase. Rich?
What our amendment says is that it can be considered. Okay, so we put it into the realm of, you can consider having a rate increase or a rate decrease if you have the 3 sequential years. So it puts it on the table, but it doesn't mandate it.
Rich?
So this morning I saw a document that came from the state auditor's office. I think it was this year. That said that there was a $2.5 million surplus in the Ferry. And we look at the numbers from Public Works and it says that there's $143,000 or something, or $43,000 or something. And the question that Ralph keeps asking, and the question that I want an answer to, and I don't expect really to get, is what happened to that $2.5 million?
We did get a partial answer on Monday. Ralph and Bob Anderson and I met with Randy and went through numbers, and the partial answer that we got was, well, number one, until the Dolphins are taken out officially, we had a huge deficit. And number two, the Public Works made the decision that because there was money in the ferry fund to not put money from the road fund into the ferry fund this year. And therefore, the ferry fund balance of $1,087,000, which was separate from the cumulative fare box balance, went way down because it was used up by what Public Works did not put in.
So under what rule does Public Works get to decide whether it will reimburse us for the road fund or not?
Well, that was part of
They still
the,
have to pay their 45%.
no, they don't. And here's the thing, they've never had to pay 45%. The way the code is written, we have to pay 55% and nothing is ever said about what they pay. The assumption, as Randy just pointed out, is they keep it going,
Does it get paid?
it gets paid, yes.
Where?
But there's no percentage, there's no set amount that the road fund has to pay. The argument that we had on Monday, and that I'm sure will continue this summer, is whether or not the initial funds that went into the ferry fund were road fund money or ferry fund money.
And that is a good question, but it is not a question we are going to answer tonight. But it will not be tabled and we will not forget it. But we are not going to deal with that anymore tonight because we have other business we really do have to get to.
I will make a note that there's a lot of angels dancing on pins. That we need to learn.
Right, yeah. Okay. The next section that we need to take a look at is it says Public Works Fair Increase Proposal, but this proposal was in fact given to us by the executive. The executive spoke at the last council of the whole meeting and to the county council meeting early in February, saying that he was intending to do a 15% across the board fare proposal. At the last council of the whole meeting, he again talked about a 15% across the board fare proposal. And that, I believe, would you agree, John, is what the county council heard? That he wanted to propose.
Yes,
Thank you.
and since then.
We then received from the executive that you guys all have in your packets, a proposal that actually is a 25% cumulative revenue increase for the ferry fare system.
Can I?
Yes.
What I believe happened, and what the numbers show, is that, initially, there had been like a 5 to 7% increase kind of across the board, but some fare classes had higher. But the executive made quite a speech at the committee of the whole meeting last week about discount rates. Like, you know, if you buy 3 of something, you get 10% off. Or you get 50% off, it's a special sale. That's what I mean by discount rate. There's you pay less than full price. It's discounted. And he made quite a speech about how 10 to 15% discount was more than enough. In fact, because you would use these passes over multiple months, you were actually making money on it, you know? And so he evidently felt quite, I mean, the way that I took his speech was that this is something that really mattered to him. And when you look at what actually came out, what happened was he told Public Works to apply the 15% instead of our current discounts, which are quite a bit higher. And it works out perfectly. Once you apply the 15%, then all of a sudden, the total amount of fare revenue coming in is 25% more, not 15% more. And so he also in that speech pointed out at some point, he said there's hundreds of thousands of dollars available because we give this big discount. Well, so that's what happened is an extra $110,000 got added on to the 15% we had heard about, just by applying that 15% discount rate. And what it means is on your punch card, you would pay 85% of the cost of a single fare. And right now, you only pay 33% of the cost of a single fare. And that made the difference between a 15% across the board and a 25% that really hits punch cards. I mean, it's really a significant increase. What did
He also made the point, and he, in South Hall's defense, he does really see more disadvantaged Whatcom County residents. And people that don't have a lot of money could only afford to buy a 10 punch card. And the 10 punch card only had a 15 or 20. The 10 punch card had a 20% discount. But if you were rich enough to buy a 25 punch card, you got a 38%, 34% discount. You got a significantly higher discount if you were rich enough to shell out $230 for a 25 punch card. And he did not feel that it was fair to people that could not afford to do that. He thought that the discounts for the multi-rides should all be the same. So in his proposal, he takes away that 35% discount and even a greater discount for passengers and takes them all down to 15% evenly. And I believe is going to do away with the 25 punch card. They may just go to the all 10 punch card. Everybody gets, you can buy 10 punches, you get 15% off. And that, if you want to buy 5 of them, great. If you want to buy 1 of them, fine. But you don't get any kind of price break if you buy a bunch of them. That is what this, and essentially what this proposal says. So I would like to hear, before we get to public comment, which we will get to, I would like to hear comments from the committee about what they think about this proposal, their thoughts about this proposal.
Well, I had a little bit of forewarning, so I'll lead off by saying that I researched Guaymas and Pierce County ferries, and traditionally the punch card discount hasn't been considered a quantity discount. It's been considered a resident. You know, you're resident on the island, so you get a good price break. Well, it turns out the Guaymas ferry and the Pierce County ferry follow that pattern. The Pierce County ferry, in fact, has the same discount for vehicle driver that we do, almost the same, 33%. And Guaymas is quite a bit less, but And looking at the other ferries in the state, it does seem that, all of the ferries consider it to be something other than just a quantity discount. They're looking at it as
A resident discount, which is, that's a good distinction.
Another rationale for the punch card tickets and the discounts on the punch cards is that these are people that ride the ferry a lot. That's why you have more punches on the card. And that means that even though someone may pay less per ride than the sticker price, they're taking many more rides. And I've argued, you maybe see the blue in my face already, that way back when, in 2009, when ferry rates were doubled and doubled again and doubled again and doubled again, we all had friends that moved away from the island because they were commuters, because they had families with kids that also commuted. The school almost went out of business because we lost all those kids. We lost all those young families. And that was all because of the enormous raise in fares. Now, the point of having, so most of the state ferries and the county ferries have not only a discount for more rides, but they also have discounts for retired people, for people over 65, for people with disabilities, for a whole bunch of other things. Those are kind of a gift of a sort. But the basic issue of being, let's say, considerate of your most frequent riders is just good business. It means you ultimately make more money than if those people decide, you know what, they're raising their fares. I'm retired. I work from home. I telecommute. I'm only going to go twice this month instead of the 8 times that I might have gone before. So this business of, my quick glance at the numbers from Sad Falls thing suggested an enormous hit in the increase of the ride for passage for a multi-ride buyer. And that seems to me to be counterproductive economically. That's
Other
my 2 cents.
other comments from the committee? Tom?
Tom Philpott here. Question for Diane. You put together a very nice document or proposal for making fares more equitable. Was that received by the counties, or where did that go?
That was just something that, was circulated as examples on the island. I believe some council members saw it, but what we hope to do Monday night is, as a committee and as a community, whoever participates, is to come up with something similar to that to bring from the committee to the council on Tuesday.
What happened was when we got the proposal from the executive's office, they gave it to us and we hadn't met yet. This is the first time we've met as a committee for you guys to all see this proposal. Then they wanted us to come to the council of the whole meeting next Tuesday and bring them recommendations from the community or from the committee about what we thought should happen with the fair. But we haven't met with the community, and people haven't even, are just barely hearing about this fare increase. So we've scheduled an all community meeting just looking at fares at the Grange next Monday on the 18th from 6 to 8. It's a special WACFAC meeting to just look at fares, for everyone to talk about it, to look at some options with Diane, to put a spreadsheet up there where if we adjust this, then what happens? If we adjust that, then what happens? We can do it all together. We'll get feedback from the community. And then on Tuesday, when we go to the council of the whole meeting where they want to hear what the community wants, we will have a discussion about that discussion that we had with the community. We said it is way too soon for us to make any kind of recommendation about fair. We haven't had enough time to look at that. But it appears that the executive is quite determined to get this fair raise through. And he, it appears, is going to potentially do it by executive order. He's going to bring it forward by executive order. He's not going to bring it to the committee, to the county council to vote on. He is just going to enact it. So that's why we felt compelled to have this meeting on Monday. So at least we had some feedback from the community to bring to the county council on Tuesday. And then I really cannot say what will happen after that.
Follow up on that.
Yeah.
So that meeting, I'm suspicioning, will be very raucous because the people on the island are gonna say to us, what are you doing to defend us against this county? And when you say something like, sad fall and executive order, probably how this will go down.
Yeah.
Well, that takes some burden off of us because we have no control over that. But it's very difficult for us to be advocates for our friends on the island when we don't have any more longer period of time for input.
Well, indeed. If indeed the county council does want an advisory committee, putting things forward by executive order sort of countermands that personally. I mean, that's what I think. If you really want an advisory committee, give them time to advise you. But you can't just suddenly, I mean, you saw the graphs have been, part of the reason that we enacted some of the things we did in this code is to prevent what happened for the last 12 years with no increase in ferry rates and no looking, in a regular basis of what is happening so that, you end up with an executive that just, completely anxious about what's happening fiscally and feels that he has to do an executive order like this.
Well, it's a good thing that you're gonna have the meeting on Monday night, because then the response from the committee becomes part of the public record.
Yes.
When you bring that to the meeting on Tuesday. So certainly the executive has the power to enact it, but I don't think that's the end of the story, right?
No, I mean, we
And
made,
so, yeah, so I think that all will be well.
well, that's very positive. Well, I like that.
Just one more picture.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I actually got these tables and graphs out to everybody. But basically, there are two kinds of years of ferry finance. The first kind of year is what we could call regular ordinary. And that includes 2010 through 2016. And to some degree, 2017, 18, 19, but 2017 was definitely an outlier, as was 2009. And as were 2022 and 2023, among others. And so the issue that's clearly going on here is that the expenses that we're paying, that are being charged at fares, are expenses that are not regular and routine, and that therefore they are a different kind of expense. We saw what happened with the 2009 version, and I talked about that a minute ago. The insistence that these kinds of, what do you want to call them, capital repairs are unusual or irregular, suggests to me that what we need is some kind of rule of thumb about you can only go so far with that. Fares aren't designed to pay for those kinds of things, period. So
we're not done with
I got a little
that,
hot
believe
here.
me. We're not done with that.
okay, I'll stop. Sorry.
Well, and as Liz has said before, we can amend the code over a single issue at other times. We don't have to make the whole, I mean, this time we're doing a whole big thing. But individually about separate issues, we can go forward and make amendments to the code in the future. And my bet is that that will need to be done.
One other footnote. I understand that, Director Costa, has expressed interest in and spoke favorably about the possibility of a countywide ferry taxing history. Has anybody heard about that?
I do not. I have not.
That came up at the committee of the whole, and basically the council and the executive, what I heard them say is it was dead in the water.
Okay, it's a really, really
No?
good idea.
What,
It's a really good idea. And we should support it.
Let's-
So the past, the resolution that adopts the level of service says that a ferry district will be looked at and to be instated. Part of that was,
You speak louder?
louder.
the resolution that adopted the level of service for the ferry that was done in 2018, said that a ferry district will be looked at to fund not only the new ferry, but fund the ferry operations, or this whole conversation of what is operation that, and I'm not getting in the middle of that. But part of that was the understanding that unincorporated Whatcom County is getting smaller with every annexation, and the percentage is getting smaller with every increase because the Growth Management Act is actually working. Bellingham is growing, and the county is by a percentage is getting smaller and smaller. So the road fund is why everyone lives in unincorporated Whatcom County, pays into the road fund. So Bellingham doesn't pay for anything as far as the ferry goes. Neither does Ferndale, and 10,000 people that may incorporate a Birch Bay will come out of the road, will be gone. So there'll be even less people paying into the road fund, and that will continue until, like in King County, there's little King County left. Almost a significant part of it has been incorporated. So what you're competing to get, as far as someone has to pay for the operation, someone has to pay for the expense of running the ferry.
And for the roads in Whatcom County.
And for the roads in Whatcom County. So, but the roads in Whatcom County doesn't have the ability to do a much smaller, tiny, in fact, ferry district throughout the entire 200,000+ people. Instead, it's on the 90,000 people right now. So 90,000 people are carrying the whole weight of the road fund and all the ferry things that you're talking about. So we haven't really had that full conversation. One of the previous council members, Kathy Kircher, said, no, we cannot have a ferry district. And I said, so you want the road fund to pay for all of it? So now I'm going to start coming back to the county council and saying, oh, by the way, because whether it's Dolphin is paid out of fares or Dolphin is paid out of the road fund, they're mine. It's got to get paid. And it's either coming out of, you're going to either help a bit of it with the fares, or it's all going to come out of the road fund. So we're going to get to the point where I'm going to say, okay, you know the bridge we were planning on building? Yeah, we'll have to save 6 years to be able to afford it, because the road fund is going to tank as we go forward. And that's just the reality of it. And the way what the RCW has looked at, because we argued this back in '93 with the Growth Management Act, we being me, argued this back then. And Dewey Dessler, who used to be the Tyler Schroeder for years and years, said this all the time. The Growth Management Act will bankrupt us eventually. And that's what we're seeing, that trend. So the RCW allows us to, because of the unique situation that us and the other 3 counties are, to enable a ferry district throughout, including incorporated areas. So when people that live in the incorporated city are sitting on the council, we're looking for them to be fair with everyone and not just the people like me who live out and chose to live out in the county.
Right.
So just a footnote on that. So that's all good information. It's occurred to me for a long time that almost everyone that lives on Long Island shops, mostly in Bellingham or Ferndale. That's where we buy our groceries, we buy our gas, we buy medical services, buy all kinds of things. And so we are, and the ferry indirectly is benefiting those economies, not just the unincorporated areas, but in particular these urbanized areas. And that, anyway, going back to it, I think that kind of taxing district to spread, especially with these rising costs, and especially with the increasing, let's all face it, these capital expenses that are associated with keeping the chief and its infrastructure going for another 5 or 6 years, is not something fairs can handle. Period. It's just not going to work. So you need something.
Yes,
At the last council meeting, Director Cosa brought to us a number of ideas to look into the future. And Diane sent out a study from Pierce County. I'd like to see us look at some of those ideas over the long run, because we know even with whatever happens in the next few weeks or months with ARPA and with fairs, we still have a longer term problem. And so Director Cosa has done some really interesting work looking at some of those longer term issues and longer term ideas, potentially tax district, looking at some changes in state law and advocating for those with our state legislators to see if we can come up with some ideas kind of similar to where some of the passenger ferries in the state are able to get more state funding, and seeing if we can get a change in that. And doing so, we would partner with Skagit County in that advocacy and other counties. There are a whole host of different ideas that could potentially have some longer term benefits for us. So I'm interested in studying those. I like the model of what Pierce did. I'd like to see us do that after we get through what we're going through right now.
Good idea.
okay, thank you so much for your input about fairs. Bring that all to our upcoming meeting on the 18th at the Grange. We will have a wider ranging discussion just about fairs. But next, we've got a couple things we have to get to. We know we have an upcoming 4 weeks of dry dock, though we don't know when it will be. We have had some requests to Public Works from the Community for Services. One of the requests that's come up numerous times from island residents is that they do not have a safe place to park. And when it was 2 weeks, that was one thing. When it was 3 weeks, now it is a month long. And a lot of people, because they want a safe place to park, they've been parking, they will rent a spot in someone's yard on Gooseberry Point for $100 or $200 for the space of the dry dock. But currently, because it is a month long, some of those yards are now wanting to charge $800 to have a secure place to park their car for a month, because when you're parked just on the county parking on the bay, it is not always safe. And because I personally drive a Prius, and the catalytic converter gets boosted out of there in like 2 minutes. And last year, I think 4 different cars had that happen. In the past, we have had security guard patrolling the area for parking. In past years, we have not had that for the last few years, and we have had a lot of vandalism and break-in and all that. And so we would really like to see the county look again at some security for parking, especially if it's going to be a month long.
One other thing that was brought up was it possible to have a county to nation discussion, government to government, with the Lummi Nation about the possibility of maybe even at the casino parking, and instead of spending the money on an on-island shuttle between the ferry and some secure parking somewhere on the reservation. And that is not something individuals can negotiate with the tribe. So is there a possibility of some government to government conversations at one time The Lummi Nation was willing to rent, a fair amount of parking spaces near where that gas station convenience store is now across from the ferry dock. And I don't know what parking is left that is still available, but again, it would have to be a county government to Lummi Nation discussion.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Let you know what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
So that's actually the Lummi Commercial Company that runs the casino and, the store area. And Gary and I have talked to Director of Real Estate Operations or something like
Yeah.
that, or, retail operations, Director of Retail Operations with the Lummi Commercial Company. They don't think they have it prepared, they will not have it, what they're gonna consider day parking available for this dry dock. But definitely, during any future dry dock and certainly during the construction, having that area will be, I don't know if they're, besides cleaning it up, I think they're going to be paving it and all that, turning it into an actual parking lot. And that's happening. I'll need to check with the powers that be as far as the shuttle.
I talked with WTA the other day and started a conversation with them about this issue. Probably not this, like Roland said, everything's happened so quick and so condensed. Probably won't happen this dry dock, but in future dry docks, we're looking at having WTA do some kind of shuttle service for us on the Gooseberry side, be it to the casino or wherever the tribe will set it up for us. So we are looking for that.
But I haven't given up even for this year.
Yeah.
I was gonna say,
Yeah.
please don't give up for this
Don't
year.
give up for this year.
A month is a long time to leave your car sitting out there.
I don't want to give you false hope, but we are working on it, but
Okay,
That's what I did all day today.
thank you. Next, we're gonna have a report from our new Electric Ferry and Dry Docks Committee from Tom Philpott. I know they've met a couple times, I think, and
Okay, I've given most of you a handout. I've got a few more left if you need one. Before I get into that, I just want to give a timeline on what's going on in the ad hoc committee leading into the April 11th meeting when we will meet with KPFF directly. So essentially what we're doing here is we're coming up with a list of all the possible questions we could have for KPFF regarding design, et cetera, et cetera. And we're assuming that yes, we have the 2020, I guess, design or 2029 design, but we're really wanting to probe into, is that the final, or is KPFF and like Union going to modify that some? So what I'm not trying to do in this document is come up with all of that. I'm basically trying to say that we've met once as an ad hoc committee. We've come up with a lot of written input to the ad hoc committee. We would like to have 2 more ad hoc committee meetings yet this month, and then give our final document, which this is not the final document. We'd like to give the final document through Pam to KPFF.
to Roland.
Roland and
KPFF.
KPFF.
Right, so that they these are the key things we really want to hear about.
yeah, if there's anything that you have that's definitely going that way, can you send that so they get working on it?
Well, yeah, we plan to get it by the end of the month, so they'll have basically 2 weeks to review it and come up with some answers.
Also, in scheduling meetings with KPFF, when we're talking about the bigger issues, which we haven't had a meeting like that, we've been all working on a whole bunch of detailed stuff, like parking. Can I just contact you and you can coordinate with the other members? I do have an email that lists all the members out, but I don't have their contact information. And I would rather just be contacting with the Ferry Advisory Committee member.
Yeah, you've got my information,
I do.
and, yeah.
So,
Will you just CC me on that so that I know what's happening?
okay.
So, anyway, that's what we're working on. I should also at the beginning here mention who is on the ad hoc committee. Dave Parker, who's an Islander, Jim Dickinson, who's here with us, Kurt Espelt, another Islander, Jen Petrell, and myself are the only 2 Ferry Advisory Committee members. And I also continue to reach out to other people that have done lots of research on this in the past, like Charles Bailey. And I talked to him today at some length, and that's kind of how we came up. This document is a very recent thing, like as of today, because the direction we were going in was trying to put the whole thing, what we wanted to say to KPFF right now, so we could talk about it tonight. We don't want to do that. So let me go from saying that into what I've given you as a handout. Where it says questions to be answered at the April 11th meeting. This is an example of the kinds of things that we're going to even make broader, make more points than just the 5 points that we've got here. This covers some of the major ones. I don't know that I won't necessarily read them out loud because you can see in front of you what they're all about. Does everybody have one so that I don't have to read it? You need one? Okay. Last call. Okay. So, but what I would like to do tonight is, if you briefly look at these items, maybe there's some things that you have as a hot button you would want me to take a few notes on, and we could bring that up at our next 2 ad hoc committee meetings this month. So, we just take a second to look at that, and then I would entertain some, yeah.
The immediate question it raises for me is a question for Roland, is that I keep hearing rumors of discussions downtown about, it would be much more affordable if we ditched the whole stupid 34-car vote thing and got a duplicate of the Glamis Ferry. Is there talk about that going on?
No.
Too bad.
Okay.
Just pointing. Thank you.
Okay. So
We can add it to your list.
So basically, we're gonna put what we have to say into categories like propulsion system. Anything that pertains to what KPFF has as a document for where it's going. And these are some of the things that tie in with that. So Ferry terminal, that would be one part of what we're gonna talk about. The design, which would tie in with diesel battery hybrid propulsion. Again, we don't believe there's any change yet since the original document, so we can go back and review those, and we might say, what about this, what about that? And again, it goes on more about diesel hybrid propulsion. There's questions about the shore power will be another major subset, and we'll have 2 or 3 questions under that. EV needs, okay, they talk about overnight charging, and part of the concern is what happens if the electric fails 100%. Well, we've got 2 diesel engines to back us up. I don't know what happens if the diesel engines fail. So it's a matter of coordinating as to when does the ferry get charged? How much does that carry you through the day versus diesel propulsion? Those kinds of things. And the 5th one there, how much electric power will it require and maintain a weekly schedule of 39 round trips a day? And will Puget Sound Energy deliver the power to the docks? And we're also already aware of the fact that Puget Sound Energy, even if they were to come up with shore power for us on Lummi Island for charging, say overnight, they might be able to have to phase in their doing this because they can't say, okay, we'll give you 10 million all at once and bam, you're gonna have it. They're gonna probably phase it in, is my guess. Is that your? Okay. So beyond those 5 things, we also get into, we're gonna look at project management, about tying into the RAISE grant, and apparently we've gotten until 2026 to get rolling on that. We gotta pull the trigger by that time. So we wanna know, question about that, and then implementation. They talk, what we say about unsheltered terminal. In other words, if you have a 180-foot vessel and its rear end is hanging out there in the currents and the winds and that thing, do we have adequate protection for that to mitigate not having it destroyed? So anyway, I won't say any more because time is of the essence, but does anybody have a hot item that they want to pass along, or Roland, now that I've said that, do you have some ideas?
I do.
Diane has a hot item.
Diane?
Yeah, I had a number of questions regarding finances, and I also know there are a lot of questions floating around by people who are aware of it, as far as the period of time that will be without service. And so I'm thinking, much as I love Charles Bailey, that you spent too long with Charles Bailey, because this whole thing is oriented around the electric power. I don't see anything about how the actual implementation during the building, and I don't see anything of the financial questions that I know I sent you. So I would just say, this is a great document as far as wondering about an electric ferry, but it doesn't cover the issues.
Okay, so may I speak to that point? Go ahead.
But, well, I actually kind of tagging onto that, is any of this can be handled between KPF, James Lee, the engineer in charge of Whatcom County, myself, KPFF, and your committee, and discuss some of these things and answer them. Because if we're only have an hour and a half to talk about all the information about the construction, we're gonna need every minute of that. And to go back and talk about whether we're gonna have a battery pack, or we're gonna wait for PSE, or, you know, are we gonna run extension cords from Harbor Freight, or, that's gonna use up a lot of time. And I'll tell you, we're not gonna have time to get onto what we need to get onto, and that is services during passenger only, which I was hoping we would actually get to starting April 11th. Would that suffice if we can start this conversation within the committee and have KPFF, and we can do it virtual so everyone can be there, and I can send these ahead of time, we can talk right through them. Because some of them, James will be able to answer, the engineers from Elliott and some from Confluence and that sort of thing, and still have the April 11th to fully talk about what we're doing on construction.
That would be beautiful. So could I ask you to convene that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah,
super.
yeah, because we want to answer all these questions, because there's a lot of rumors going around that I hear about 15 cans away. And so people will run to me at a store and say, I heard, you know, you're going to build the Guaymas Ferry. Really? Okay. I don't know anybody working on that, but okay. And honestly, as I've mentioned several times over the past 10 years, I don't care. If you want to stop it all, go back to the county council and say, we want to redo the level of service, and we just want to take all of that we did before and just shelve it, and we want to do it all again. Okay. I was here in 2008. I wasn't with Public Works in that section. I watched this all happen once before. So, you could do that. So if we could do that and work some of these, in fact, I think most of, not all of these issues, I think we can handle within an internal because we're not looking for specific
But the community
input.
The community really does want to hear answers to many of those questions.
Now, we can
So
publish them.
while you may still want to have, you know, a town hall about all those issues, the meeting on the 15th is about, it's not just about what's going to happen during a lengthy period of passenger only ferry. We want to hear about all the things that he's got down there, about the docks, about the vessel design, about what's happening. I mean, that was the point of having them at that meeting.
Okay. So Roland, since you brought up level of service, that what you exactly said there has been kicked around in our group too. Like maybe we need to start with square. We don't want to blow up what's been done, but we want to say, oh, by the way, what about this? And I think at the time, you know, it took LifeAct. I used to attend the meetings, but I wasn't on LifeAct. It took them 3 years to figure out the level of service. Then when that came down to you people, you weren't going to say, well, you got this wrong. And so that's how the 34 car ferry came out. But there was still a lot of dissension, even that, okay, KPF says FF says we're off to the races with that design. We've had a lot of people say, what about a 28 car, a narrow 28 car one that could fit in the existing docks? Now, that may not be practical, but I'm just saying, those are the kind of things that are discussed that need to be out in the open. So maybe, I don't feel we're stuck with the current program, but how do you make that current program better? What elasticity is in there to give us some more options? And I also wanted to say something to Diane's point. So this is only a small, it's not a template of what we're gonna do, it's just a few ideas. These are the kind of things we have, if I had to enumerate them, we've got your 8 points on financials. We've got another person on our group that is very technically oriented that has 20 points. So we've got about, and then, so we need, next meeting, I'd like to have your meeting done first before we get to chewing on it just by the ad hoc committee. So that's an important meeting. But we have, 30, 40 things that are on the table, and we got to figure out how to reduce those into
Right,
10, 12, 15 categories. Because if you just throw everything at KPFF, they're going to run the other way out of the meeting next time.
exactly.
So, yeah, Roland, let's do it.
Perfect. Thank you, Tom.
Right.
And thank you to the ad hoc committee group. This is gonna really help us, keep moving forward. We're a little behind as usual in our agenda. There are a few things we still need to cover. There's only one person signed up to speak right now during open session. And so I'm gonna do that quickly now. We're gonna have to limit it to 3 minutes. Do you still want to speak, Peter?
Just briefly,
Okay. Go.
I thought we finished with the 3 minutes stuff. That's kind of a bad omen from the past that's being brought back into.
Well, the problem, and the only reason is because we still have a bunch of work we have to do and we're stuck with this timeline.
I just wanted to say that I really like the idea of having a countywide ferry district. I think it really resolves a lot of different kinds of issues. When you think about what's going on right now with St. Paul's 25% fare hike proposal, with the redistribution of the types of tickets and so forth, we're creating a situation that's going to be a cauldron on the side. People are going to get really mad. The community is going to polarize with county government. And this is going to be a tough road through the rest of the spring, because we're going to be having a big battle. If this rolls forward and if the county exec were to act by executive order by decision, it would be a very, very polarizing thing. And I think about the idea of a countywide ferry district. I think about the reality that would require us all to work together. The county council, various departments within county government, the island, and allied communities outside of the island. We could put together the kind of coalition to drive and achieve a potential solution, and rather than tearing us apart, ping-ponging back and forth about dolphins and about leases and about gas tax and so forth. So I think we're kind of at a pivotal moment. I kind of see a fork in the road here. Over here, we got this alleged deficit, which I don't believe really exists. I think Ralph's questions really go to that. Rich's questions really go to that. We don't believe there is a deficit. If the fare box were properly operated with the 3 doors in, the administrative costs, the routine, regular operating costs, and just the regular operating costs, the salaries and gasoline and so forth. Those are the 3 doors into the fare box. So we sit here and just fight about that and argue about what should be in there and whether we're creating artificial deficits or real deficits or not. We're not going to be in a position as a community and our government to move forward in a logical, rational way. I ditto what Roland said about Kathy Kirshner being in opposition to that district. She was also very opposed to 55%. She wanted to raise it to 75%. So we now have a new chair of public works. We now have an opportunity to work and try to put a strategy together and work together in a way that doesn't polarize us further. And We have to talk about your 3 minute rule.
I know, sorry.
You know, but I'd like to see the plan.
But why-
It's just me. I
It's a
mean,
great sentiment, and I appreciate you bringing that up. Working together is a great sentiment, Peter. I really appreciate it. So Peter was the only person who signed up. Are you interested in speaking as well, Ralph?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So,
I'll speak my 3 minutes.
okay.
Just a couple of things tonight.
Yeah. Are there hands up?
I, as an Islander, seeing the proposal on Friday or whenever, was shocked, upset, concerned. With all the work we've done, the work group which I've been involved in is now expanded. The communication I've made with both IFAC and to this committee and the council, there's not one item of this stuff. So I just want to make a couple of comments. And one, there's no question the costs are escalating. And if we run at $700,000 deficit, that's a 50% increase. No two ways about it. So that's a reality. It's a reality. The background analysis for the fare increase, the rationale, the impact, the justification appears to be missing from the copy that I got. So I'm suggesting there should be an analysis, impact on ridership, impact on, well, moving off the island, etc. Time provided for going through this and meeting on Monday and having a proposal by Tuesday is grossly unreasonable. Just two quick comments on the ferry fund balances. Declining and needing an immediate fare increase. I believe there's a surplus today. There's a surplus of December 31st to January 1st, 2024, according to Randy. The budget for $700,000 deficit. If ARPA funds received the 360, the opening balance is about 300,000, which is a surplus, the 50,000 projected deficit in a year, the end of 2024. That could be covered by any change, increase in the motor vehicle fuel tax from 90,000 back to 250,000. Easily covered by any of those items. Can easily be covered by favorable other expenses. Current code does not allow a fare hike if there's a surplus. Currently a surplus, and we will probably surplus at the end of 2024. And if there's a $100,000 increase in fares or decrease in expenses, then there's going to be a surplus. Even a surplus at the end of 2024. Comments with regard to graphs. It concerns me that we have $2.5 million of county road fund money in the fund January 1st, 2023. And this post I can stand for the community. This graph says we have $108,000 and no explanation of what happened to Q1. Not a simple explanation, quite complex. The town has changed policy, changed how they account for things. They've changed 3 or 4 things which are quite complex and all done at the same time in 2023. So we've got $2.5 million. Ferry 101 says we have to add the MVFT, which is 2.7 million, bringing it up to 4.8 million, lose 700,000. One account would expect $4.9 million in the road fund contribution and in the fair bond. And now they're saying 108,000 road fund contribution. They've drawn money out, and Randy says we haven't transferred any money out. We've only cut back in what we owe you in the 45, so they paid 22% of operating costs.
So you're,
Yes. And I didn't hear any comment on the presentation with regard to current large material outstanding issues. It's swinging gravity.
and please know, Ralph, we are not done with these issues.
What's supposing, are we asking? Before voting, right?
Well, I'm just saying, that there's a lot of things that have to happen, but those issues have not disappeared. They are still there. We
But
acknowledge
the
that.
county has moved the cash.
Right.
Yeah.
Two, there's no one from the Zoom audience? Great. We have a few things that we need to cover before this meeting is over. there's been a discussion about changing the meeting day from the second Thursday to the second Wednesday so that some members could attend more easily. Is there anyone here that would have a problem with changing it to the second Wednesday instead of the second Thursday? I know Gary has trouble coming because it's a fire hall night, and Todd has trouble coming as well. He has things happening that night. Is there anyone else that has a problem with the second Wednesday instead of the second Thursday?
Yeah, I have a standing meeting that night. Have to attend.
Pardon me?
I have a standing meeting on that night also, on Wednesday.
Oh, on Wednesday. Anybody else?
What
in the-
about third Wednesday?
I can't do third Wednesday.
I can't, third Wednesday.
First Wednesday,
Good question.
That's okay.
that's open.
First Wednesday,
First Wednesday?
That's okay.
all right.
First Wednesday, anybody else? First Wednesday is good? Okay, then, do we have to, can we just decide or do we have to do some formal
I
thing?
think you probably have to have a motion in a second and a vote.
Okay? Does anyone have, pardon me?
I'll move.
Second.
It's been moved to move the meeting time to the first Wednesday of the month, starting in May, because the April meeting is set with KPFS. So starting in May, the first Wednesday of the month.
And you seconded.
Is there a second?
Second.
Sure.
Oh, okay, we have a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstention? Great. The next thing is we are talking about moving our venue change from the gathering place to the Grange. And the reason is because in order to deliver hybrid Zoom, we need a screen. And we don't have access to the screen to use for the home Zoom viewers as well as the viewers in the hall. So that it's much more difficult to do that at the gathering place at the Grange. You can hook your computer up and you're just ready to go.
Can I speak to that?
Yeah,
So, Bill Sager, who's been doing this for us, and, Robert Keller, need to get together, because I've talked to each one of them separately, and we could do this very easily by buying an 85-inch smart TV and mounting it. And then we
and
can,
if you do that, we can talk about it. But when KPFF comes, we need a screen,
we can do that.
like for the April meeting.
I'll see if I can raise mine.
Okay. The meeting that we are having on the 18th will be at the Grange, and that was Bill's choice because they just recently bought Zoom electronics to deliver Zoom, and they can use it at the Grange, but they cannot use it at the gathering place. So we'll leave the venue discussion open, but the next two meetings will occur at the Grange unless there is a change and there's an opportunity to use the screen at the gathering.
I'll get back to you within a week on that.
Okay. We've mentioned already the special meeting we're having on March 18th. That is a regular WACFAC meeting. You're all welcome to attend. There will be a Zoom link and it is published in the agenda. Kim is going to get that agenda out tomorrow, so it will be available to the public. If there's any members in town who would like to attend, but they want to attend by Zoom, that will be possible. The next regularly scheduled meeting is April 11th, when KPFS will be here to talk to us all about our new ferry and infrastructure, including constraint issues and costs. And hopefully we'll have some time to talk about our lengthy period of possible lengthy period of passenger ferry, but most of that I think will happen at a formal town hall meeting with Leica. They really want to sponsor that
In June.
in June.
We were gonna do June 1st, or
We haven't scheduled that yet.
So that's what we were talking about, and I mentioned it a couple of times, but that's now not happening because of dry dock, because
You can blame me.
we won't have a boat in June.
We can have a community meeting in we can totally.
We can have a
community
town hall,
meeting
you
during
guys,
dry
that would
dock.
be a great experience.
Yes, it would be great
KPFF.
for you. You can
Right,
park your car in
passenger
the
boat.
dark. You can walk in the dark to the ferry dock. You
No,
can
in
ride
June-
the boat.
in June,
Okay,
they'll
oh,
have daylight.
Too bad.
They'll have daylight in June.
Yeah, really.
I'll be down in Seattle.
Okay, well, so a town hall will be determined. We definitely want to do that, and Leica wants to help with that, but maybe we should wait till after we have our dry dock.
Thanks.
Okay,
Tuesday, talk about Tuesday, the March 19th.
oh, yes, and so at the committee of the whole, on Tuesday, the 19th of March, WACFAC has 30 minutes to present to the committee of the whole our response to the executive's fair proposal. So if you have things that you want to say, please come to the meeting on the 18th. That information will be collated together and we will communicate to the county council and to the executive, the community's thoughts about this proposal. Yes,
That is now,
Code amendments.
pardon me?
that is now scheduled for 2:30 PM.
It's now scheduled for 2:30, got it.
And
Okay.
then for anyone wishing to make comments during the evening, we have figured out remote comment. It'll be back open
Oh, great.
for Tuesday for the evening. You have to register. There's a Zoom link. So if you go to the council website for our meetings, you have to register by 8 AM that morning.
Got it.
This is our way to put up some barriers.
Yeah. They've had some real difficulty during the county council meetings with the Zoom speakers at the open session part of it. And so,
Trolls. Trolls.
pardon me?
Trolls.
Trolls, exactly. And so they closed it. They've closed it some, but now they have a process that you can register to speak from that meeting. And there may be many people who want to speak at that meeting. So I would encourage you to register and speak because they need to hear what the community is thinking about the fair proposal.
One other thing about the committee of the whole meeting at 2:30 on Tuesday, and that is what we were invited to do was to present our code amendments and fairs. And so,
Oh, right.
in attending the last committee of the whole meeting, it seemed to me like there was some interest by the council members in the fact that we had looked at some examples of how fairs could be distributed. You know, it went out in the tome and I presented it at the last meeting. And some misinformation got to some people that we had adopted something, which we didn't. We just looked at some examples. But based upon the interest there seemed to be by some council members, I think if we are able on Monday night to develop an alternative that it would be paid attention to.
I agree.
And so I really think that Monday night, although there's lots of upset to be heard, it would be wonderful if we could channel our energy Monday night into developing the alternative and then channel your upset into the county council meeting the next night. Not the Whatcom County Ferry Advisory Committee meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think I'm going to call this meeting to a close. I'm sorry we probably won't make that 8 o'clock ferry, but we'll be on the nines.
Do we have any poll with that?
This is practice for the 4 week.
Oh,